Honey, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated so we can start. Our friends online are waiting for us as well. Thank you. Very good. So, dear guests online and offline, welcome to the NORDIS DIL Forum, Digital Information Literacy Forum. I will soon go on the program and explain a little bit perhaps what is NORDIS and what is Faktabaari, who is hosting the network at the moment, and some practicalities. But of course, our big themes today are the AI, also the social media platforms, especially after the break, with the help of our colleagues coming all the way from Norway and Australia. So we will have a little bit of perspectives to this crazy world we are living. I think the audience kind of knows already what is happening on that front, so I'm not going to detail you all, to explain you all the dystopias, but we are more focusing on ways to overcome that and what the NGO sector and the free independent stakeholders can do in this one. First of all, what is NORDIS? NORDIS is part of the EDMO wider European network, our Nordic hub, and it covers colleagues from 4 different fact-checking organizations, University of Bergen, and then technology partner Factiverse, and FOJO, that is a journalist education institution in Sweden. Together, we have worked already like 2 shifts, and now we are going for, so in our language, the Nordic second phase. And let me see now. Second phase, and here we have missions to debunk misinformation, bolster digital information literacy. That is our topic today, and strengthen the Nordic information ecosystem. Oops. There's plenty of more material on the NORDIS as such on the website nordishub.eu, so please have a look at there. But I think this slide from our leader Morten summarizes pretty well that we try to amplify through collaborations. We do joint investigations, especially the fact-checkers. We do tech development, mostly in the use of the journalist as such, but we, as a media literacy parallel community, try to kind of follow and learn from that one as well. We do our coordinated media literacy work, but we also do training for journalists, because that is still that scales. We still luckily have journalistic media in the Nordic countries, also in Europe, whereas in the rest of the world, the situation is even worse at the moment. Big simplifications, but get the big picture. And then we do policy work. And policy is super important, as you can see, now that we are kind of in the crossroads, like what's going to be the European approach next to the US and probably the China-led initiatives as such. But we try to kind of first understand ourselves, coordinate ourselves, and then try to reach out to the audiences with different kind of channels, websites, and mostly on our individual members communicate through their channels, because the audience is still settled for them, but we use NORDIS Hub EU as a portal for our efforts. And today we are focusing on the coordinated media literacy work, and we are actually going to open up I think the one and biggest single deliverable of our network, prepared by my colleague that will talk you shortly. So next to Faktabaari, so next to NORDIS, we of course, like in Faktabaari, have been working on these type of topics since 2017, and I will just open it up to the extent that it kind of sees our approach. We are a small NGO, but pretty active and on many fronts. And we've just turned 10 years. That is in these circles actually quite a long journey. We use this topic that illustrates, unfortunately, the broken internet at the moment in our 10 years anniversary list. It's actually a page cover of an academic book from Vili Lehdonvirta, but it kind of illustrates the kind of a coat of arms and who are really the digital power brokers, and now how it's linked to the political power. Yes, it might look a little bit like that one. These are slides we used ironically in our own presentation. But as we see it, we are not really tilting the windmills of fighting imaginary enemies. And we don't want to think that our battle is hopeless. And we are not out of touch, because within these networks we have a lot of understanding, at least, on the situation, and we can kind of catalyze some tools. We have been Faktabari working for 10 years. These are some of our partners in very wide networks, and of course credit all of them for enriching our thinking on these issues. And now lately we have especially then run within the NORDIS together with our Norwegian colleagues from TENK that are present here for these most acute challenges ahead. Before still going a little bit to the digital information literacy, that's the frame, and of where Kari talks about the AI, I will go a couple of slides backwards, just on the practicalities. You, as audience, will have possibility to make questions. Esa will coordinate that. Esa, can you wave your hand? The audience cannot see online, but Esa will be also following your chat in the YouTube, and picking up things from there and trying to intervene me every once in a while, if needed. We will have one break. Of course, we kind of filled it up with a launch of a new game that we did on can you spot or can you still recognize a genuine photo of the manipulated ones, AI manipulated ones, but that's for later. The first break is about 14:20, so in 1 hour and about, and our idea is that you can pick up the coffees and then return to your seats, and then we change a little bit the topic, then we go on, and then after that we enjoy a reception here. Unfortunately, yes, of course, only on offline, and you will have a chance to network and taste a little bit. There is some snacks and wines made by Faktabari team. Outside that, I put some of the hashtags, but as we have seen, it's getting more and more difficult for our type of organizations to get reach in the social media. So we don't put too many hopes on that one, but we put our hopes on people like you here and online who can amplify the things if you find them useful. Finally, the credits to, of course, our NORDIS Hub colleagues, but also to DECA project. That is a wonderful academic project by sponsored by the Finnish Academy of Science. If I got it right, yes. Minna will correct me sooner or later. But anyway, that has been more like the research arm in a way that has been feeding us in, because as a small NGO we cannot afford to do academic science. We have rather try to interpret it for the citizens. So I will soon let Kari to take the floor. Kari's presentation will be followed by Christian, who is presenting what the officials are doing it on the AI. That's very interesting. And then we have the break. Then we will have more like a TikTok-focused perspective. What's the role of the big platforms in the media literacy field? Much understudied. We are like a kind of trying to serve it with you. And then we will have, as said, insights from our Norwegian colleagues, think, and as said, from all the way from Australia with a prize. We close by 5 o'clock, and before that one, there is a couple of words from still from me on Faktabari and the continuation of these efforts, and our chairman of the foundation that we established ourselves to be truly independent also in the future. Good. So finally, to the digital information literacy. Long, let's say, definition. Kari might come back. But personally, in these image-driven times, I think this talks a bit more. Information literacy has a long roots in especially on the libraries and organizing information. But I think the second one is kind of more illustrative, what means to try to do the same thing in the digital setting. Stretching out from here to the AI challenge is that this was a map search that Kari has used in his demonstrations, and I think it was a European map that you searched at the time. You got at those times, this was last year, 224 million hits for the European map, and the other one, this is done with one of the generative AI tools, DALI, and where you put the same European map prompt, you get one picture, and as you can see, this is of course the synthesis of in a way the data that the AI has been eating, but not completely accurate. So this is just like an easy way to say that the accuracy is a challenge, and that's of course not that's the big challenge that we try to follow it with our origins in fact checking. What does it really bring in? Good. Perhaps I give the floor at this stage to Kari, and we can really dive into our theme of the day, the AI, and to the publication of the let's say the second edition of our AI guide, this time focused and targeted to the teachers that we believe very much and highly appreciate in Finland, and as we have learned also in Nordic countries. They are highly educated, and our silver bullet to an extent has been that we try to kind of empower them, because they are still working with the digitally natives that are not, unfortunately at the moment, digitally literate. But perhaps I cut it here, and Kari, welcome, and perhaps you quickly present yourself as well, even if you are a modest man. Thank you.
So first of all, I'm testing the micro, and I want to wish good afternoon for online people. According to my information, there is about 100 people from 16 countries, the farthest away from Singapore. So Bruce, I don't want to compete with you, but Singapore and Australia pretty far away from slushy Helsinki. So I'm so proud to be in front of you today, and especially in front of a lot of writers of the new AI guide for teachers. And before I go any further, I would like to ask Pasi, Tarmo, Miikka, Minna, and to stand up, because we have among us the writers, and Pipsa is there too. So I want to give applause for these writers. We have also Esa, who is having the film camera, who is, he and his wife are behind the layout of this book. So thanks, Esa, for wonderful layout. So why Faktabari is interested in AI and why we do a booklet of it. So this week, academic paper was published, a case study on our first guide, which is the Digital Information Literacy Guide, which was published in 2022, so 2.5 years ago. And they went it through and they analyzed it, and in the abstract it was a negative remark that the Digital Information Literacy Guide doesn't say anything on AI. So we are hitting back. Here is it, 80 pages of full information. The Finnish version is printed and available, and if you want to have a copy, there are plenty of copies available. The Swedish version is in the translation, and it will come later on. And the English version is already translated, but it's not yet totally proofread and layout. So it will come quite soon. And today we have also published a link where you can find if you go to that, you can find the PDF version and also in the future the different language version of the guide. So we had in total 10 writers. Why we decided to ask the best experts in Finland to participate is because in Faktabari we don't have all the wisdom. And it's fact checkers' basic principles that we are always asking experts and people who are specialists in certain areas to contribute. And for our big pleasure, people have been responsive, and I have to say that the writers who are here today and the ones who are home listening to this have contributed without any fee. So I'm appreciating your contribution really a lot. We are all believing that this is important thing. So the aim of the, I have not chosen that font, but the aim of this guide is to give education providers. In Finland we have, for example, about over 300 communes who are in charge of the education of the communes. Teachers and learners, basic information about AI, its capabilities, limitations, ethical challenges, benefits, misuse, AI pedagogy, and AI literacy. As you can see, we have 21 articles, and they are all looking at AI from the different angle. If you are kind of nerds who are really interested on the really technical side of AI, this will be a disappointment. We are interested on the pedagogical view of AI. How is it linked to the education? So, why? Faktabari, and for example me, I've been training a lot of teachers in the past years in Finland and also quite a lot abroad. And I've been asking in these trainings teachers on how do they feel with AI. And this is, for example, a training we had last November in Avi in Finland. And to ask 100 teachers who were participating, do you think that you have enough information to use AI in the classroom? And 0. Out of 100 Finnish teachers, 0 told that they have a basic skills. Most of them, additional training is needed, and significant additional training is needed. And 25% of the teachers were totally out. I mean, basic skills are completely missing. At the same time, our students, our youngsters, they are using AI-based tools every day. And I'm afraid that this digital gap between the teachers and students might create some kind of tensions and problems. So, I ask also, this is a very big training. We had 331 answers from teachers of all over Europe. Do you use AI in the classroom or in the school? And 6% of the teachers said, yes, we do. 60% sometimes, and 36% never. And I would say that this is, wherever you make these polls, you get more or less similar type of results. And this is a little peek to our local municipalities here in Finland. I asked in the Finnish training that how necessary do you think the Finnish National Board for Education recommendations on the use of AI are? And very necessary, 70%, 28% necessary. And these are coming, and we will probably hear a little bit of, and now we have also something on consultation. But the waiting time has been quite long. So, what is the AI in education governance? For our big surprise, UNESCO, UNICEF, OECD, European Commission, and many more international global organizations have published different types of frameworks and kind of telling that AI should be taught. One should be careful on ethics. Each organization is having their own set of kind of frameworks and guidelines. And it's very easy to do it in the upper level. You can say that teachers in the world do this. What is really difficult is the next level, which is the level of ministries of education. And I'm working in a EU agency where my work is to follow what happens on the digital education in 27 EU countries. And I have to say that Finland is not at all in the late train on that. It's the problem all over Europe. We are very late in giving instructions to the education providers and teachers. Why is that? I come to that later on. And then we have school providers who have a, huge responsibility. Which digital tools we use in the school, which digital materials I buy, which tech, which software, which licenses, how can I train the colleagues? Can I be sure that they are respecting the copyright laws or privacy laws in Europe? And the education providers have actually quite a huge responsibility at this moment. And then we have teachers who are in between this kind of pressure from the common pressure that, yes, you should do something on AI in the schools. There are upper level recommendations, and yet the kind of local instructions are missing. And what is most important, local training, teacher training. And now we come to on the bottom, which are us, NGOs. And according to us, our role is to support teachers and students and individuals by providing people factual, understandable information, background information on AI, so that people can at least read something and get some information. So in Europe we are also blessed, and I really, this is not irony, I think that AI Act is an important act. And when I've been following the discussions during the week, what happens in US and what happens in Europe, I'm really feeling protected by that we have some regulations still available. And the AI Act has a quote that it's important to promote high quality digital education and training, to allow learners and teachers to acquire and share the necessary digital skills and competencies, including media literacy, critical thinking, to take active part in the economy, society, and democratic processes. We couldn't agree more. In the real life, it's a little bit more problematic, because the AI Act is entering fully in force only next year, and there is a lot of interpretation still in the air how education as a high-risk area will be dealt with. So, teachers are now in the kind of situation that we thought that it's a good moment to give them some support, and that's why we have been providing this information. So, this is Tarmo's quote. The responsibility for AI solutions in education lies with the institution, not the teacher. On the other hand, organizations are obliged to ensure their employees are AI literate. The educational institute must therefore train its teachers to work responsibly with AI systems. And I think this is what we really would like to urge. There is a need of massive teacher training, updating the teacher information. We cannot just throw teachers in the cold water and say, swim. We have to provide them necessary information and competencies. So, what is the pedagogical perspective on AI? So first of all, in the guide we try to explain what AI is and how does it work. And it's not only generative AI, but AI in general. But we are concentrating very much in several articles on generative AI. So AI as a subject of learning, which we don't do much in Finland. I have been a lot of contact with our US colleagues, and they are doing much more training with their students with the computational thinking, coding and things like that, which helps you to understand the functioning of AI better. We don't have it enough in Finland. Then, how AI can be used in a responsible and ethical way to support teaching and promote learning. So AI should not be only a gadget, that this is fun thing, but it should be used to something which is adding value. It's giving students something more than they wouldn't get without AI. And then how AI is changing society. The social impact of AI in the labor market, knowledge management, environment, communication, future professions. And I think the students who are thinking of their future studies and future orientations would highly benefit on AI competencies and AI information. And then there is also the challenges of AI. Why is it important to be quite critical and healthy critical approach to AI, Gen AI outputs in general? I don't go now to the lack of time, but I've been working with different organizations which are developing kind of what AI literacy is, and it's still kind of developing. Every month there is a new, better definition, and this is a very new thing. The first mention of AI literacy comes from 2016. But the point is that it's important to know what is the AI and Gen AI, know how it works and what is the ethical and societal impacts, and know why it's important to engage with it and why it's important to be, let's say, ethically critical. So, ethics of AI. I'm using this thing done with the AI tool called Napkin. One of what we preach is that when you are using AI, you should be open about it and tell how we have done it and what is the tool we have been using it. So, human agency. It sounds a little bit strange, but actually AI is, first of all the coding, all the algorithms are done by man or woman. It's a human thing. The material which has been used schooling the large language models, they are created by human beings so far. The AI platforms or systems, they have been designed by humans. When you are entering, for example, generative AI, a prompt or question, you are influencing on what is coming out. And when you get the result, whatever it is, it's once again you have to decide if it's useful, is it correct, is it accurate. So the human involvement is there in every phase. So it's kind of less intelligent than we think. Humans are in between everywhere. And we should keep it that way. So never let AI to take over. Transparency. As a copyright person, we know that AI, large language models, are trained with a lot of material and nobody knows exactly what. So it's not very transparent. We don't know how the algorithms work. It's not very transparent. And actually there are a lot of things we don't know, even the best specialist. And sometimes the big CEOs of the AI companies are asked, do you know what has been used to train your system? They said, how could I know? Because it's not very transparent. But transparent is also in the decision making. When we get the output from AI, we should be transparent that this is proposed by AI and take a human action on it. Diversity and equity, non-discrimination, the biases. About 90% of the materials, this is based on, I think it was UNESCO study, are coming from USA, and it's English-speaking materials. And the smaller is the language or the population or a culture or whatever, and the less they have digital footprints, the less they are present in the AI, especially large language models. So it creates a bias. Privacy is a problem, especially for us in Europe. We actually have very few platforms which are respecting the European privacy regulations. Who is accountable? AI is not accountable. It's when you are giving a prompt, you get an answer. It has no responsibility. The responsibility is on our users, how to use the thing you are getting out of there. Also, the developers, they have been washing their hands, especially in the last 5 days, on responsibilities. We are not playing God. We don't decide what is right or wrong. We don't want to censorship. We don't have to moderate. Fact checkers out. This is what we have heard recently. Safety and security, but also the social and environmental well-being. Aki, who is not here yet, but who is written part, has something about the environment. And also this social sustainable development is an important issue. So all these issues are about AI. And what are the risks for the education? We have data protection issues. If a teacher takes the copy with the name of an address and the birth date of the student and puts it in the machine to kind of feed it to the AI, you will never get it back. It's there. We don't know how the data is handled. We don't know where it goes. And we don't know where it's popping up. Security issues, we are not really trained, most of us, on possible data breaches. The teacher trainings, I've already mentioned that it's totally not enough. Guidance, there is a little bit more guidance, especially the universities have been doing a good work on that. But most of the educational institutions schools don't have clear guidance on what to use, how to use, when to use, and how to report on that. The limited critical thinking, there is The problem with these publications is that just when you get it out from your hands, there is a new study which shows that there is something new interesting. And I saw a study this week which says that the students, it was quite a big sample, that the students who are using a lot AI are kind of not using their cognitive capacity as much as those ones who don't use it. So it kind of creates academic laziness. Why to struggle if you can put machine to do the thing? And the lack of transparency, what I have mentioned already. I'm going to go a little bit quick, but AI is everywhere. It's in the cars, navigation systems, your fridge, your washing machine might have AI, your vacuum hoover going around, robot probably having a quite interesting AI in it. But what is really worrying is that, and we have a good article from Harto Pönkä here, about that the platforms like Facebook, Instagram, etc., are using more and more AI-powered personalized recommendation algorithms. And if you have noticed, if you are into Facebook, I think we are all in the age of Facebook, except maybe you. In the past, I used to get a lot of kind of feeds coming from my friends. And either my feeds have stopped using Facebook, but I get now much more advertisement, much more content coming from I don't know where. And actually, according to studies, the amount of real feeds from real people are getting slower or smaller. And there is this tendency to put more advertisement, more commercial things to the people. So our guide also gives practical tools. This one is really practical. When generative AI came, teachers were angry to students who were using, it's called academic cheating, that they did their essays with AI, and suddenly the students who were not so brilliant gave us absolutely flawless results. And it has been discussion among the teachers all the time. And this AI assessment scale, which comes from the researchers from Leon Furtse, has been taking the world now very quickly. It has been translated now in 19 languages, and it's kind of common goal with the language between students and teachers. So when teacher says, in this exercise, no AI is used, it's clear. Or in this exam, AI is not used. In other tasks or assignments, AI can be used for planning, or it can be used for collaboration. And then there are these full open AI cases, and then even the cases where AI is kind of use AI and be creative and create something to solve tasks. And if you have this common agreement between students and teachers, it's maybe easier to kind of cope in complicated situations. So, but Pasi is here, so I'm quoting his. In schools, AI cannot only be treated as a new technology, but as a force affecting democracy and freedom of expression in societies. It should not be seen as a tool for automated censorship, hybrid influence, and information production. And the key challenge is to equip learners with critical thinking, problem solving, source criticism, and creativity, skills related to the use of AI. So this is where our digital information literacy and Faktabari mission comes in the surface. This is exactly where we want to do that, because we see that AI used for different types of purposes which are not so correct. Pipsa has written a big article about deep fakes, voice fakes. AI can be used to influence us. There are many other things where we need critical thinking more than ever. before. And this is a positive thing that in Finland and in most of the countries there have been Australia, oi, 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 what you are doing there. There is a discussion if students should be banned to use mobile phones. And personally, I'm in the opinion that very young children should not have these kind of tools. But at the same time, the task and the mission of the school is to provide students and pupils with the skills so that they can learn how to use the devices once they get it. And you don't learn digital skills in vacuum, and that's why it's important that the teachers are kind of trying in a safe environment new tools, teaching critical thinking, analyzing the content together with the children and students, discussing security issues, safety issues, addressing ethical issues, having also these positive attitudes of encouraging creativity and innovation. We have been also providing kind of guides for students on what could one do, check the rules, be critical, be honest, follow instructions, protect privacy, be careful, ask for help, and help others. And now I would like to give some positive comments for the Finnish National Board for Education and Finnish Ministry of Education. These recommendations were put on the consultation, I think this week or in the end of last week. And the deadline for comments, and if you are interested, please comment, 7th of February. And I think that the recommendations for education providers are excellent. So to use AI when it's pedagogically justified, provide appropriate training for the teachers. The AI use must be open and transparent, and the procurement and deployment process should be kind of clear guidance for users, and also reminding about the possible bias in the system. And there is the risk of over-reliant use without critical evaluation. So I would like to support from Faktapari point of view these recommendations. We have also in the instructions on data protection for students. I don't have time to go much, but this is the kind of important question. So we are educating young children, young students, and what kind of information knowledge will learners need in a society, in the workplaces in the future? We know that AI is there, is coming, and it's coming further. And how we have to change our teaching to enable learners to acquire the skills required in this age of artificial intelligence. And I end by quoting Jarmo's old text, because you have written this, I saw it in your presentation once. So generative AI, I mean, if you are talking with them, I mean, chatbots, they sound like a human, they sometimes behave like a human, but nevertheless, they don't understand the meaning of the words. The function is based on the computational predictions. They have no opinions, they give no valuations, they don't think, they don't predict anything, they don't feel, they don't care, they don't take any responsibility, and they are good in hallucinating. So, if you want to read more, here is the guide, and the English version and Swedish version are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Kari. Oops. Thank you, Kari. If you take the chair there, and Christian Smedlund, could you join us? I put your slides so that we can have the the discussion with authorities and us on the in regards the forthcoming advice to teachers. Just a moment. Oops.
Thanks for your support. I'm not losing.
Good. Everybody can see. Thank you. Welcome, Christian.
Is it possible to get this and just this one? Okay, I think it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mikko and Kari, for the nice invitation to give a comment on the Faktabari new AI guide. My name is Christian Smelon, and I working at the Finnish National Agency for Education. So I'm representing the EduFi right now. I have to admit, and it was a joy to read not every word in the guide. I haven't had time, but most of it. And it looks very good. I would say I'd say thank you to Kari for doing a great job, very diligent, hard-working man. So it's very important for Finnish teachers and education and teachers to this guide and the in-service training that you provide. Some comments on the guide. It starts with an honest acknowledgement to previous international guidelines and recommendations. The EU material, of course, the AI Act is a very important foundation for guidelines, AI guidelines, and UNESCO and UNICEF as well, OECD. Those international recommendations and guidelines have been very important for us as well at the EduFi when we have worked out AI recommendations as well, as Kari mentioned. To me, we have a nice balance between the areas of AI. We know it's not easy to get a nice balance between the areas. Because of it's a quite complicated area, isn't it? The double-edged sword, for example, we should use AI in schools, in classrooms, to learn for the AI to get more skilled, have the AI literacy we need, but also be aware of the risks with too much reliance of AI, generative AI, particularly. Myself, I have a math as a major and computer science as a major minor, so I'm very interested of how AI works. What about under the bonnet? How it is working? How is the machine working? And you have a nice try of opening the black box, somewhat, a little anyway. How generative AI works, data points and tokens, vectorization, and neural networks, and statistical models and probabilities which are in the black box. We are all sometimes you use the term black box for AI, and it's challenging when you not know how something works. But anyway, I've heard experts explaining, for example, how to drive a car. You don't have to know everything about how the machine works under the bonnet to drive a car. So it's how you drive it, which will be of course, in focus. The ethics section of AI, the ethics of AI section in the guide is very extensive, including the benefits with AI and the risks. I really have noticed it's quite reminiscent of the background material of the AI recommendations which we have worked out. It's a summary which Kari just showed something of. We have a quite broad background supportive material. I was responsible for the ethics and sustainability section part, and it reminds quite a lot of that Kari has written. So Kari was also in the working group, the working group of the ethics section. A strong focus on critical evaluation of Gen AI produced material. I think it's very much in line with Faktabari's mission of critical thinking, critical evaluation of online materials as well, in general. And that's very important, the critical evaluation of Gen AI produced material. It has also an easy-to-read summary of the AI Act. It's a critical section, which I mentioned there because even the experts, the professors of law, are interpreting the AI Act. It's not an easy act with the 400-something sides of law text. But Tarmo has done a good job there to interpret the AI Act and the levels of risks, which will be the real. It's not so much. I don't believe teachers have the. I don't think they will use. They will not. They are not able to. They can't read the AI Act, and we can't expect them to know the AI Act. But something, the basic foundation is very good to know. And the assessment, AI assessment scale, AIA as the first scale, I think it's something, it's very concrete. So I think it's very good that you have included that as well in the material. And you had a process of documentation there as well.
It's also in Swedish.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was something in the Finnish text I didn't really understand. It was something of the assessment of using full AI, but I think it should be okay. I suppose. I just remembered one colleague from the Ministry of Education when we have had our discussions, and we don't want a situation when AI is producing assignments and AI is checking the assignments. That's not a situation that we want. So we should be careful at every step. You have also included information about the Generation AI projects and applications. Jari Laru is the writer of that one. So it's not, of course, it's expected that he had included. It's very important for us in Finland that we have high quality research about AI in education. And the applications like a learning machine and the social media machine, which they have published, especially the learning machine, which is good for the enhancement of the AI literacy, to get a feel, small children who get a feel about learning a machine, to understand, to classify pictures, for example, cats and dogs, to separate cats and dogs. Machine learning for kids, an English site, DIL AI. It's just one person who is running the site. It's reminiscent of the learning machine. But there, on that site, there are quite many many projects to learn from or to use. So it's very nice that we have those types of websites when you can enhance the AI literacy in a very concrete way by loading lots of pictures and letting the computer classify those pictures. You have also a viewpoint of an education provider and a teacher, which is very good from the field, so to say, and information about deep fakes and recommendation algorithms in social media. So, very nice balance of common knowledge around AI and its use in education. So I wondered, is there anything missing in the guide? Those of you who have written and read, have anyone read the guide yet? Something on of it. Do you miss anything? What about the writers? Is it anything you would have taken into account? If you you can have a few minutes to think about that. Not much. I didn't find much, but something maybe. The ecological sustainability aspect. If you should search for something, then I would miss maybe the ecological sustainability, because it's so it's very hard. It's very difficult to get the sustainability aspect integrated in computer science and in computing, in whatever you do on a computer or online. The sustainability aspect. I think there's a power-hungry processing. If you like, you can Google on power-hungry processing. There's a very good article or research about the energy intensiveness of generative AI. I think it was Stella Lee, a Canadian expert at our digital learning arena in December. She told us that there has been 150 billion pictures made, AI-produced pictures made in a year. Far more than all the photos that has been taken so far. So that's quite much. Of course, everything is, especially pictures, generative pictures, AI-produced pictures are energy intensive. It can vary from 60 times or even 6,000 times more than producing text producing, regarding depending on the AI, the Gen AI system or application. So something about that. Yeah, we have a comment there.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't hear as if it was on, but anyway. So I have to admit I haven't read everything, mostly the titles, and I will have to read it. But from what I know, what would make Faktabari have to work a lot is to create this for university level people and students who are now kind of already above the kind of, okay, do an essay, but actually are interested in using AI for facilitating their research, who are lazy and, well, not necessarily lazy, but like who think, quote unquote, pragmatically and say, okay, I have this many papers to read, why not just put some AI tool to summarize it for me? And I'm in the position myself, I work for Faktabari, and I do a lot of media literacy workshops for high schoolers. But I went to school, university before this trend came became a big thing. And for me, it's just awful to think that you wouldn't read those like 500 pages and you would just like put that into, like, it just doesn't really compute in my head. Like, but there are some people who say like, oh, like, it's just pragmatic and easy. And I think we have to reach those people and talk about the ethics and maybe use the language and talk about pragmatism and what is possible, what is desirable and what is not desirable. But I do think for that we need to make another AI guide for, I don't know, university students and beyond, like researchers, and yeah, I'm interested in hearing thoughts about this from everyone.
Yes, thank you very much. I continue with the sustainability, and it belongs to ethics. I think it's of the 7 principles that Nguyen et al., the research team with Finnish and New Zealand researchers have developed. There are the 7 principles of ethics, and the 4th one is the principle of ethics and sustainability and proportionality. But anyway, it could have been something about multitask, task-specific. We could prefer task-specific systems or applications in front of instead of multi-purpose systems or applications. For example, in translation. For example, when you just search for information, you don't have to use generative AI to search for information. It's enough with a simple Google search, just to look for the right information. That's 2 examples of task-specific applications. An overall challenge regards all AI materials, and that's when are we processing AI or discussing AI systems used in education overall, including learning analytics, and when are we discussing generative AI? It's not easy to, when you are discussing both types, several kinds of AI systems. What are we discussing, Gen AI or common AI? It could be any system which are not existing yet. For example, in ethics. As Kari said, the AI recommendations, our EduFee's AI recommendations draft is on public consultations. Our policy is not to show any material before it's published, so I can't show. I don't want to show anything, but Kari just showed something. That's fine. The draft in Finnish, if you draft in Finnish and Swedish, is easily to. You can search it on. I don't know. But if you get this material, then you can click on these links to have a look at them. The AI recommendations consist of legal obligations and recommendations for education providers and teachers. And recommendations are a cooperation between EduFee, National Agency for Education, and the Ministry of Education and Culture. They are based on a broader background material which has been worked out in a broad cooperation between us, EduFee, and teachers and experts, namely teachers and researchers. So it's not just we counselors at EduFee who are behind these AI recommendations. And that's also the news in Swedish, if there are Swedish listeners here from Sweden or Finnish Swedes. I could give something which I have given a thought. I thought I would do that. This is the revision of the taxonomy, of the Bloom taxonomy from 2001. Anderson Crutwell is very well known. I think we are in the focus of analyzing analyzing texts, I think, when we are using generative AI, producing texts, then we should analyze the text, take the important parts, analyze the important parts, the core of the text, and evaluate the text, which is produced. Okay, so it's quite clear that this is an interesting framework. It's cumulative from left to right. You have to remember, you have to understand facts. Facts and concepts are a very strong foundation, and understanding the facts and the concepts before you can evaluate any material. Okay? So it goes from left to right. So it's very much about the cognitive process, the level of thinking about evaluation materials. In the framework, it's there are two, checking and critiquing, so it can be applied to any kind of, also in math, physics, natural science, this framework, no problem. But in this, maybe in this regard, we are judging or evaluating AI-produced material. As I said, it goes from left to right. But now, if we overuse, as Kari mentioned, if we start to overuse, rely too much on AI, then what's our following? What's the result of that? Is it, as I see this, then it's the possibility of getting from right to left. We start to create maybe pupils. We have the risk that pupils start to completing assignments too fast using AI, and maybe not initiating, planning, and structuring an assignment, but a little bit fast, a little bit maybe too fast to create from scratch to completion. So is that the direction when we are using generative AI? I don't know if you have probably not seen this. It was just yesterday evening when I thought I would give this one a thought. There was a Swedish, there's this Swedish research last year. They have done research about. It was in autumn last year, quite new research. Research about the use and perceived usefulness of generative AI in relation to the executive functioning, the youth's, adolescents' executive functioning. Very interesting. Executive functioning and academical achievement. So the findings reveal that adolescents with EF problems, they tend to perceive generative AI tools as more useful for schoolwork, and especially for completing assignments. So it's they don't, if they have problems with executive functioning, so they don't use it for planning, initialize and plan and structure problems or assignments. Maybe too fast they go too fast to the completing. So that's the researchers they conceive it as a risk. It could have negative implications for the long-term learning outcomes and the natural development of the EF, executive functioning. So there are quite risk for cognitive development, not getting the cognitive development they would need. So that's one of the risks. But they also told the other side of using AI because of some special needs in pupils, different special needs that pupils have. It could be useful to also use AI for individualization, which is also something written about in this AI guide. So there's always this double-edged sword because of the risks and possible uses and usefulness of AI. Maybe I could stop with the quote from the final words. Further research and from the Swedish research. Further research and proactive measures are essential to ensure the safe and effective use of these technologies, while also considering their implications for academic equity and cognitive development among adolescents, pupils and students. So I think something about the risks and the benefits of AI. Yeah. Do we have time for some questions now, Mikko?
We would, please. Thank you very much, Christian. First of all, applause. And we have time for a couple of questions and remarks and something. First of all, I take it as a super endorsement, of course, and it was very nice to hear. I didn't even introduce myself, so I'm the executive director of the Faktabaari, and we have gathered forces to publish it. So this would be the kind of a very good first aid, at least for the teachers, because starting tomorrow, we are going to distribute this one to the 700 first teachers as such, and it will be in line with the recommendations while providing them material now, because that was one of the starting points for us, that people need in the field something now. And this is how we also see ourselves, like we can catalyze the things, because obviously it takes a little bit more time in the administration.
Yes, I understand the critique, because when we don't have published them yet, it's been quite much blood, sweat and tears in the working of the background materials. We have jurists and the lawyers, because the foundation is the AI Act and the GDPR, of course. We have to be, I think you have a little bit more degrees of freedom at NGO like Faktabaari, a little bit more at least than EduFi, because the responsibility is is massive.
Yeah.
And also for you, of course, and for everybody who are publishing material about AI guidelines in education, because it's a high risk field.
No, and this was not like a pure direct. I think it's still what I've understood, and please let's extrapolate a little bit from Finland next within the 5 minutes, but still we are kind of going on. We will have that one, but this is where the NGOs can come into picture and the kind of activist based on expert knowledge, that because something is needed. This is something we learned with Kari 2 years ago in the US when it was full-scale adoption without anything. So this is a kind of, we still want to believe that this is preventive work. But perhaps after that one, Esa, is there something online? No. Okay. So practically, I was wondering that we obviously understood and took into consideration also in the preparations that it should be quite well adaptable, at least in the Nordic countries extent, because we have relatively similar education system, if I got it right. But what would you see, like we have online like people from 15 different countries within the Europe, within the EU, for example. So by reading the guide when it's published, let's say latest in March, hopefully already now in February in English, the full scale. So what would you say that, because it's to some extent contextual, but how well this Kari kind of lives with the expectations in other countries as well?
So I can already inform the international people in the online and here that the translation is not full translation. There is some adaptation on the content. So the English version is a little bit less Finnish concentrated. It's but the Swedish version, because we have a Swedish-speaking minority in Finland, will be exact copy of the Finnish version. But the English version will be an international version. So there is slightly different examples and sources and also some content.
Okay, so you don't need to know the Finnish education system to understand the content.
Yes, that's exactly the point.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, very reassuring. Thank you. Is there any other questions from the floor or online? Please.
Not really a question, more of a thank you. As someone who does the legwork to help the teachers to get all the information about the new stuff on AI and anything digital, I'm really happy that the guideline you did is short enough for teachers to actually read, because that really helps the bring the point to the action. Because too many times I have seen such a long instructions and applications and all these texts that no one actually reads. This is really, there are all the points you need, and they are in very compact form. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for the comment, and having kind of observed the process. As far as I understand, half the writers are more or less teachers from the origin, so it helps as well. Please.
Was this a comment on EduFi? Okay, thanks. I think that there was the cooperation with the ministry has been very good now, and I think the background material, thanks to all who was in the edition of the background material. So without the background material, which we have, which we also will publish, I would say I thought that it could get some critique because of not being enough those guidelines in the concrete work for teachers. I expect some kind of critique as well. The last time we had a public consultation, I think there was almost 100 replies and comments, official comments. So I think there will be some comments. All kinds of those, and it's good. It's very good. We take them into consideration, and we get a better material.
Just one more comment. I'm one of the authors, but I still say this. Kari Kivinen, you thanked us as well as everybody involved, but I mean, you're the heart of this project. You started with the first guide, and now we're here, and this will be in 3 languages. So. A round of applause to Kari.
Thank you, Minna. That is very important. Yeah.
I think my colleague Pasi said something about lifting up the computer science, and it's the computational thinking. I think it's a very important skill, and now there are listeners in all over Europe, and I think in all the countries we are taking into consideration the computational thinking, and everyone is understanding its importance. So I've been for the EU Code Week. For a few years I've been an edu coordinator, national coordinator for Finland. I've been on events in Europe and in Brussels, and we see how the computational thinking skills are how we work on them in different ways. In some countries we integrate computational thinking in maths, in subjects maths. Some countries it's a transversal skill. And in some countries, it's its own subject. So we do it in different ways, but I think we consider it a very important skill. It's a very important skill, computational thinking. It's not so easy to define computational thinking, algorithmic thinking as well. It's more simple. But I think we know how important it is, but we do it in different ways in all over Europe, which is very nice.
Thank you. I suggest we will soon now have the break. Thank you very much, Kari and Christian. And you will have during the break some time to chat with the gentleman. While I want to also introduce, I mean, there is no real breaks at Faktabaari, so So next to, of course, serving the teachers, I mean, we have to get the youngsters interested on the theme. And for that one, we kind of already last year did a first version. We thought that what could be the tool that could kind of help discussing the AI, and of course it was at least at that time already the pictures, the images, and the manipulations and how rich they are getting. But now we have just launched and get ready actually today, wasn't it, Pipsa? We got the last comments and also the Swedish and English translation. So we have now the game Aito. Can you recognize the generative AI? Can you recognize the genuine picture or image from the manipulated one? And the 2 version is now, we build it on so that 2024 you could still go for the, you know, the famous 6 fingers or something like that. Now with the newest technologies, I mean, that's, you don't need to care about it. You can fool us if you want so, and I mean do it properly. So it will need new skills. It would need skills, some skills that actually the fact checkers are very good, and it needs a very professionals like Pipsa, for example, our editor-in-chief, who has come and commented these questions, then both the 24 and 25 pictures, and give some advice. But the idea is that you can kind of take the QR code with your mobile phones, and you can go browse first. It should be intuitive, but I explain it for everybody. So 24 pictures where you can still kind of mark something if you are really concentrated. Then with the 25 pictures, there are other instructions now needed, because it's more like according that you have to understand the context, you have to have the general knowledge on the things, good basic education skills and all that type of, so it's getting so difficult. But then there are some tools like fact checkers are using reverse image search and that type of things that could be helpful. But give it a shot while having a coffee, and as I said, no real break, so Elsa, show where the coffee is. Yes, around the corner. Pick up your coffee mugs, and then we will join after the break with more discussions, for example, the role of the media giants or the tech platforms in the media education in Nordic, and Minna will talk about the challenge, and of course then we go for some best practices also from Norway and Australia, as promised. Thank you. 15 minutes break. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, without further ado, I will give the floor to our good colleague. I would say, Minna, you can present your. Minna has been helping the Faktabari and NORDIS in so many ways that I don't know where to start, and also links with the DECA project that is supporting our activities here. But most of all, Minna will now kind of extend the discussion from the AI to the more like to the social media monitoring we have been doing in NORDIS as well, and of which Faktabari is kind of coordinating our efforts in within the NORDIS hub, and we will also ask kind of people to help us on that one. But Minna, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah. There's your coffee.
Thank you.
It's a great pleasure and honor to be here. I'm not an educator. I don't know pedagogy, but I know a little bit about EU and EU policy. I work for the DECA project, which is a Finnish vast research consortium of 7 research institutions. And I've been with NORDIS from the beginning, as well as part of EDMO, the European Digital Media Observatory, so the umbrella organization for all the hubs within Europe, hubs like NORDIS. And I've been in the working group thinking of how on earth do we monitor platforms, especially the very large online platforms, and what do they do? And part of that monitoring is, we've been thinking about how to monitor what they do in terms of literacy. So what do we really know? I'm so sorry to tell you, but it's a sad story, maybe a public service announcement with warnings and call to action. And the short answer is we know very little. We should know a lot. I know you know this, but just as a recap, the EU Code of Practice on Disinformation, the sort of upgraded version in 2022, it had existed before, but it was updated then. It became kind of a go-regulation tool for very large online platforms under the Digital Services Act. And what is very large online platforms? This is the EU definition. So we know those actors from Meta to TikTok to X. And one requirement in this Go regulation or guide was for these platforms to create tools that empower users, for instance, to detect and flag false or misleading content. And specifically, Commitment 17, continue and strengthen their efforts in the area of media literacy and critical thinking, also with the aim to include vulnerable groups, with tools, activities, and collaboration with the EU, with EDMO, the European Digital Media Observatory, as well as NGOs within the EU that deal with these issues. So what do the platforms do then if they've committed to this Go regulatory tool? And how do we know? The EDMO has been one of the bodies to think how to monitor that, and the platforms need to report biannually about what they do in different in these kind of code of practice on disinformation reports. And I'm going to show what they report, especially about literacy, with one example of TikTok. I, together with a German colleague, looked at the TikTok's Code of Practice report, the last one from beginning of 2024 until mid-year. And TikTok obviously is very much used. I'm sorry, the graph there is hard to read, but you can see that it is very popular, especially in Sweden. It is 3.57 million users. These are the recent figures I got from Statista. In the middle, we have a news piece from Finland from mid-2024, where a significant number of members of the parliament thought that, yeah, maybe we should ban TikTok. It's harmful. And then, of course, from I think this was last week, one user of TikTok going to Etsy, which is this sort of a platform for arts and crafts, trying to engage a witch to spell, to cast a spell so that TikTok would not be banned in the US. So a very, TikTok is a very much in the middle of controversy and so much loved and despised by different communities. So what does TikTok report? They give some basic materials, basic descriptions really in their so-called transparency center. They talk about their recommendation system, their responsible, transparent AI-generated content, how they deal with it. They talk about how they deal with integrity of elections. In their safety center, they talk about harmful misinformation, election integrity, and they have a newsroom where they post on new developments. They have a monthly transparency report on covert influence operations. Wow. And they have topical intervention tools on the platforms in particular topics such as elections, for instance, EU elections, the Israel-Hamas conflict, climate change, COVID-19, Holocaust denial, the war in Ukraine, as main examples that they list. And they have video notice tags, so learn more about this topic. They report, they do search interventions, so somebody's searching these topics, so they prompt verify if this content is real, links to trusted sources. They have public service announcements. They have unverified content label, so if they label something that is unverified, the person cannot share, and it's flagged for the user. They have state-controlled media labels, so if some content is from state-controlled media, they say they label it, and they provide AI-generated content labels for creators so that the creators can disclose what has been created with AI. Now, who is on TikTok here? Okay? Have you seen any of these? Who has seen some of these on your feed? Pipsa is the only one. You're our fact checker lead. So, okay. How many and often or sometimes or?
During the EU elections sometimes.
Sometimes during the EU elections. Well, as we can see, obviously, these tools, at least from sort of anecdotal experience, are not so often meeting the audience. So they also report what they've done all around Europe. They talk about the Nordic countries, that they've done special campaigns in Sweden and Denmark and Finland. I don't know what the Swedish campaign is. They mention it, but they never explain it in their report. They said they did a general literacy campaign in Denmark, and then very proudly they declare how they did a campaign in the presidential election. During the presidential election, they said they collaborated with Mediataitokoulu, which is through our sort of official regulator, the audiovisual KAVI, the National Audiovisual Institute, and they collaborated with Logically Facts, which is a fact-checking organization. Wonderful stuff that they did. Did anybody in Finland on TikTok around the election see any of this? Pipsa. No, even Pipsa didn't see anything. Okay. And then they give these wonderful figures. I'm looking at them. I have no idea how to verify them. So impressions and clicks for these particular campaigns. But yeah, maybe not. Interestingly enough, Pipsa pointed out that in one marketing magazine, I suppose, website, there was a news item that TikTok and Logically Facts made this wonderful campaign, 6 million views of their educational videos. You know, in Finnish, for the Finnish election campaign, we're, 5.3 million people in Finland, 5.4? Anyway, yeah, so. Faktapari fact-checked. I brought this info to them. So obviously, these labels by TikTok look great, but they're very infrequent and very inconsistent. So whatever is labeled and something that should be labeled necessarily isn't. Very limited number of partners, and I would say all European-wide. We checked with my German colleague, and there's very little transparency what TikTok does when it collaborates with a fact checker or literacy organization. We don't know if there are any NDAs, we don't know what the rules are, and very basic campaigns. Also regarding the Finnish elections, when I personally didn't see it, I'm not on TikTok, I admit, but I heard that it was just basic, verify the information that you see. It wasn't sort of election specific necessarily. And this, I thought, was kind of incredible, but I don't think it's unique. All the data that the platforms have, they don't use to create very impactful literacy interventions. And I think this is such a shame, and this is horrid, to be honest, because only they know. Researchers don't know, literacy folks don't know, fact checkers really don't know. We don't have that kind of data they have. And really the impact is very unclear. These reports report figures and facts that we just don't have access to, or we can't verify. And this is just my personal opinion. I don't represent anybody, but it makes me think how much this is a PR rather than literacy work. Why does this matter? Couple of things about the Nordics. Everybody thinks we're fantastic and wonderful regarding literacy, and so we are. But within NORDIS, we did a nationwide survey in these 4 countries a year and a half ago. And it's incredible that 60+% of the respondents report that they encountered disinformation very often, or somewhat often. Obviously, we don't know if they really did. This is the feeling of the respondents. This is the assessment of the respondents of this survey. And also, 20+% of people said, I don't know if I did or not. I am not sure, I don't know. And only about half of the people said, I feel pretty confident that I can assess what is fake and what is truthful content. Finns were a little bit higher on that, so good for us. Here is the link to that study. Some more insights. People are worried. Obviously, we did this in 2022, so the information warfare, or sort of foreign information interference, is high in the worry, especially in Finland in this case, but remember also the NATO membership and all of that. The lighter blue one is worried about fake news, and just in general this sense that there's too much information, too much social media impact. So even in these countries that are harbingers, sort of often talked about as the promoters of literacy, the best countries for media freedom, yeah, okay, we have high level of trust in legacy media, and we're very critical of social media, but it's clear that for the Nordic Nordic people, it's ever harder to assess the veracity and reliability of information. And we start to see also in our study that there are so-called affected polarizations. So opinions start to get polarized. People start to think very differently and very emotionally about certain issues. And we have epistemic or knowledge communities. So little communities have their own kind of trusted sources and start to distrust shared sources of information. And then we asked, who's accountable? What do you think this symbolizes? The response was, we as individuals are accountable. Nobody else can do it for us. This is the kind of overwhelming feeling that we don't know what's fake, we don't know how to assess veracity, and at the same time, I guess we individually need to know and check that out. Nobody can help us. So And just look at this. This is just a highlight, for instance, if we get back to TikTok. Faktabari and Czech first did this amazing research, and Faktabari folks can talk more about it, how they did it, but they looked at TikTok's recommendation algorithm during the Finnish presidential elections, and clearly there's a huge impact. And what does TikTok does to help us with literacy? Very little. So call to action, people. Just exactly a week ago, so-called the Global Information Climate Report was published. And I mean this seriously. This report is supposed to provide us a similar kind of overview of our information sphere as the climate report. And it has many sections. One is on literacy. And it highlights the fact that we, again, because we don't have the data, we know very little about impact of this and misinformation. There's no silver bullet, but all kinds of literacy efforts have some impact. And by the way, I was kind of consulted for this, and me and many other scholars, and this is based on thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed research, just saying. Also, something we don't talk about enough is that in this sphere, and especially with AI coming, really we don't talk about people's rights, communication or knowledge rights, and especially for children and young people, this is very difficult because they don't decide themselves. So the rights-based approach needs to be more highlighted, and not just skills, civic education. I think in the Nordics we're very good with that, thankfully. And then contextualization. And that's why I say we should walk and work together in the Nordic countries. We really need to protect and celebrate the Nordic so-called digital media welfare state. And I am asking you, what is our vision? And what are the real actions by different stakeholders? And what can we do in the Nordics to give to Europe or globally? Just to point out that we actually have a set of recommendations, visions, and actions from a think tank of the Nordic Council of Ministers called A Nordic Approach to Democratic Debate in the Age of Big Tech, and literacy obviously is a key vision and action there as well. So we have sort of policy recommendations to that. So what can you do? Start. The EDMO is still continuing this sort of monitoring work. I looked at TikTok's transparency report for the code of practice. You can answer this questionnaire as an expert in literacy. It's a huge questionnaire, but just answer literacy or whatever part you want to answer and tell your opinion, because we need some kind of accountability since we don't have the data, since we don't have such collaboration, and it doesn't seem the collaboration between the big platforms is getting any better anytime soon. So let us at least have EDMO to hear our voice. And then I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minna. That was very clear, and perhaps just to contextualize, we picked up TikTok because we don't have, let's say, resources to monitor all of them, but we thought that at least this would be justified, especially in the eyes of the who really uses the media, who uses the media as at least studied in Finland. I mean, TikTok is, so to say, the primary source of news for youngsters. I mean, I'm sometimes wondering what do they consider nowadays as a news, but anyway, so this was, so to say, important, and that's why we focused on TikTok. But I think most of the stuff that we were discussing and about the lack of transparency as such would pretty much go to also to the American platforms as such. So this kind of banning now the TikTok for security matters only is just one aspect of it. But any questions to Minna from online or here offline, so to say, because this is certainly a topic of discussion at the moment, and we are hearing all the time in the news TikTok perhaps a little bit late, less in the last couple of weeks, but it always comes in trends. I've been following this 10 years, so it's always like who is in the loop, who are they attacking first, and whereas we should make a kind of systemic change and put the accountability to work for, ideally for all of them and in the same line.
Can I say something before anybody asks anything? We are looking at all the very large online platforms. My colleagues all around Europe are taking a look at Meta, X, and so on and so forth, and their transparency reports for the code of practice, haha. And so some platforms do better. Google has funded activities much more than TikTok has, and so on and so forth. And we will also publish a report, or EDMO will publish a report what the platforms really say about literacy, but also about collaboration with fact checkers, also about their internal governance in terms of disinformation and so on and so forth. So look out for that. I hope it's going to be published in February.
Can we expect a kind of easy benchmarking, so somehow like who is doing better, who is improving at least, or something like that, because that should be at least a kind of a market-based approach, that you are not just because of the headlines, but you could see the kind of development over time, and at least like investment to the media literacy, that is a very poor industry, if any, and still seems to be now the one that everybody goes for, because next to the policy line that, of course, it's struggling also at the moment, but EU at least keeping hold, and as I suppose we have a commentary from the Australia who has been fighting back as well. Yeah. So any questions from the audience? Heikki, please.
Thank you for your presentation. How would you assess and estimate one VLOP named Wikipedia? It's one of the VLOPs, and it's a global non-profit organization, and it's very different compared with this commercial. Do you have any notions? I would like to hear a comparable sort of a survey on all these reports from EU.
That's an excellent question, and unfortunately I have no idea, because I only dealt with TikTok. We were, I would say, 25 scholars who committed to going through the transparency report, but as I said, around, I hope, as early as beginning of February or early February, EDMO will gather all the information as well as your answers to the questionnaire and compile a comprehensive report, and then we'll know. But I promise we'll keep you on the loop, and everybody who's been here, and anyway we'll post about it, I hope on Faktabari's website, and also I think we'll write about TikTok especially, because I was part of the Nordic Council of Ministers think tank, thinking about sort of our Nordic values, and it was so interesting that during that process I got contacted by TikTok various times. So they're very keen on, how would I put it, interacting. I believe Kari has been also in a panel, and I would love to hear, Kari, your view, because you discussed with a representative of TikTok how wonderful they see TikTok as an educational and media literacy tool themselves. So they're very invested in this field. What they do is another matter.
Yes, indeed. I've been in the same panel discussions with the TikTok Nordic representative. And I have to say that I was quite astonished on the approach. So first of all, TikTok says that it's a micro-learning platform. Millions of youngsters, millions of people are learning new skills from TikTok short videos. And we have to admit that it's partly true. It's there are a lot of videos which are having kind of educational, I mean, you learn new skills, practical things in the life. Also, the second was a really astonishing claim. I mean, it kind of was trying to make TikTok very positive. And everybody who has been 10 minutes in TikTok knows what it is. So they said that TikTok is promoting reading skills in the world. And the evidence behind it, and it's true, I checked it, that if there is an influencer in TikTok who says that this book is wonderful, go and buy it, it's #1 in the best-selling books next day. And they kind of have this book talk where young people are presenting their favorite books, and indeed it adds reading in. So, like all the social media platforms, it's not entirely negative. But if we are comparing the balance between positive effects and something the violence, the sexistic, racistic, all kind of thing which is kind of fleeting there, even if you are not looking for it, the positive sides starts to be quite, how to say, yeah, worth mentioning, but that's not the whole truth. But indeed, I would say that TikTok has also an important place in the heart of the youngsters. It's that they use it, they love it, they are spending their time with it. They are sharing strange things there, and it's part of the amusement. And we should not ignore this power, and we should maybe use the same skills ourselves to do a little bit of marketing using the same means, in a positive sense.
But to me, that kind of explains a little bit like how this book talk phenomenon explains like how good a marketing tool it is. And let's face it, you replace any, let's say, social media. First of all, they are not social, and they are more like a marketing tools as such. If you replace it with a marketing tool, then you can say that they are able to market even the books, so to say. But it's a different way of approaching. Yeah, I will give the, okay. Yep, please, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Some years ago, I met a lady from South Africa who said she was the director of Google Africa, and she claimed that Google has this educative, non-commercial site, which is somewhat is true. The same kind of comment. These big companies they want to give an image, at least give an image of this kind of activity.
Yep. Minna.
Absolutely, but going back to book talk and what TikTok reports and what they claim they do with logical and whatnot, imagine if they would really boost, if they would really give some resources to true literacy work and really boost it. And I mean, the opportunities would be endless. But anyway, here we are.
It's a little bit where you put your effort, and that's why it's so important that efforts like that, however badly resourced, still at this stage, we try to kind of keep them accountable what they are really doing and what they are reporting, because it's I personally believe there is a big unbalance with that one, unmatch of that one, but I think this is something, this evidence building, you can all contribute. So please go to Minna for the link if you didn't pick it up already, and you can reply to that one. And I know that in parallel there is many efforts to collect that, and the EDMO is just one, but very important channel for independent thing that is not even considered as a kind of stakeholder, because it's these things are getting obviously rough in forthcoming weeks and months as the digital power is is kind of battling with the political power, as we will see. But now, next topic, so to say. But I mean, of course, our friends, Norwegian friends, you are also very happy to take a stand on the two topics. But we have the honor to welcome Marte and Tina, who have been who are working in our partner organization DENK, that as our Faktabaari Edu is kind of working with the fact checkers to approach these information disorders, and as far as I understand, also very much talking with the teachers. But I give the floor to you. Please explain us the Norwegian approach to these issues, and also something that many of our, let's say, friends know, the collaborative approach, especially in the journalistic fact-checking that we have been promoting very highly in Finland. But that's just a starting point for you as well. Welcome, Marte and Tina.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. It's really nice to be here. My name is Marta, and I work in TENK, which is the Educational and Media Literacy Division of Faktisk. And with me, I have my dear colleague, Tina.
Yep, nice to be here.
And in the next 15 minutes, we will give you some insights in our hands-on approach working against misinformation through media literacy in Norway. First of all, we are from Faktisk, which is the only the only fact-checking organization in Norway.
Yeah, and we were established in 2016 when all the major media organizations came together to start this initiative, so that each separate editorial house didn't have to do all their own fact-checking, but instead we could have one kind of centralized, journalist-driven fact-checking agency which made all of their work available for free to all media organizations in Norway. And 3 years later, in 2019, TENK was established as a response to the increasing demands from school and educational institutions, which were very interested in the knowledge and in both the knowledge and the techniques that could be provided by Faktisk, because they saw all the synergies and all the ways that their media competency and fact-checking techniques could be applicable also in schools.
Yeah, and over the last 5 years, we've expanded the way we work a lot. And today we do go far beyond the fact-checking, and we are facing the challenges with everything from conversation cards and TikToks to critical reading, which we now will show you. Our main purpose in TENK is to develop free learning resources on digital media literacy and source awareness for teachers in secondary education in Norway, which is age 13 to 16. And the resources, they are published online on our website, and they are without any restriction on access.
Yeah, and today we are a team of 6 working in our department, in the media literacy department. All of us have backgrounds from the school and classrooms. We're all teachers, and together we cover almost every subject in the Norwegian schools. And we find that being teachers gives us a unique insight into what a teacher actually needs in the classroom, and how learning materials should be developed, and what kind of form it should have for it to be as useful as possible for the teachers who are actually going to be using the content. And we also have the expertise from our fact-checking co-workers in the editorial department, and all of this together gives us a quite unique opportunity to provide Norwegian classrooms with support when it comes to teaching media literacy.
Yes, and we found that another key factor for us reaching classrooms is to is to start on specific curriculum goals and to incorporate the media literacy into the work that is already being done in the classrooms. And in Norway, everyone follows the same curriculum, and I think we do have lesson plans connected to a wide range of subjects, from scientific topics to language and arts and mathematics.
Yeah. All of this makes it easier for teachers to find content that is applicable to the situation they're in right there and then, both with regards to where they are in their subject and also what is moving in their student group. Because we, as teachers, we know that my classroom is different from my coworker's classroom. So my students will need something different from her students, even if we are right next door to each other. And as such, I need to be able to adapt. I need my lesson plan to be dynamic, so that when I'm in the classroom, I can make adjustments as I go, so that my students will get as good an experience as possible, and at the same time actually meeting their needs, and also as far as possible meeting their interests.
Yeah, so it's really important for us that our lesson plans online are easy for teachers to access and to adjust. And also they're kind of dynamic. We use quite a lot of time on updating them with new examples, adjusting them quite often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, you know, in this way we aim to empower with the teachers with updated knowledge on the latest trends and the latest news and also the latest fake stories.
And so here, if you could go one back, we forgot to mention the point of having all these pictures. They are all the topics on our website. So we have lesson plans within all of these topics, ranging from conspiracy theories and technology and social media to fake news and sports and pure fact-checking, as well as graphs and numbers and artificial intelligence, just to mention a few, because there are quite a lot of different topics that can be addressed while at the same time staying within the curriculum.
Yeah, because as we were mentioning, one of our main tasks is to provide resources that address current events and social media trends. Because as you all know, children, they receive completely different information than the teachers do, and teachers, is really hard for them to have access to that, to such information.
Yeah, and as such we try to use videos that are realistic examples of what the students actually experience online. So for instance, when the war in Ukraine broke out, we were using videos from TikTok for the students to evaluate, and we used them directly in the classroom and gave the teachers a lot of framework and support with regards to how they could approach these kinds of videos. Of course, we didn't give them extremely graphic videos, but we did inform them that the students might be exposed to pretty dramatic content, and gave some suggestions as to how they could approach this in the classroom in case some of their students had seen something they didn't want to see. And so that is part of our mission, to actually be up to date and provide the teachers with videos that their students possibly have seen, or at least within the kind of topics that they are receiving right now.
Yeah, and the other topic that we've highlighted today is content related to health information and health advice, because we see a really high volume of health information on TikTok in the last couple of years. And we do see that young people, they often use personal experiences on TikTok that influencers or others are talking about as factual information and advice. And this is one of the reasons why Faktisk last January started their own TikTok account.
Yeah. So our TikTok account is funded by a foundation in Norway until October 2025, which is when we have our next election. What we do on TikTok is actually making fact checks in TikTok format. So this is our co-worker Oda, who is taking, for instance, taking a video that Faktisk has been tagged in on TikTok, which users can do. They can tag other users, and we are quite often asked to fact check content on TikTok because we are there. And so we then choose which videos or which claims we want to fact check, and make fact checks, present fact checks on this format. Of course, it was subject to quite a lot of debate whether we should go on TikTok or not. But we figured in the end that the pros outweighed the cons, and we started our accounts. And we can see that quite a lot of young people are engaging with our content and are interested in what we have to offer. And as such, we can be kind of a support and maybe a counterweight to some of the claims that are floating around on the Norwegian language part of TikTok.
Yeah, and we also experience that TikTok is not only a great or a place to reach people, but it also provides us with quite a lot of insights into what is trending among young people, and we can use that insights when we are talking to teachers and when we are developing our educational resources. Yeah, I don't think we had the time to see the video, but we can. Yeah.
It's been really, really inspiring to see Faktabari's work on AI and media literacy today, and to talk about it with you all yesterday. And so we wanted to share a little bit about what we do in regards to AI as well. When ChatGPT was released to the public, we developed and provided a guide to Norwegian teachers as a discussion framework. And in January last year, we published some tools for the classroom. More than tools, it was a package of educational resources in cooperation with the Danish fact-checking organization Check.det. And the primary goal of this is to strengthen the resilience of Danish and Norwegian youths by providing knowledge about generative AI, increasing awareness of their own vulnerabilities, and equipping them to assess information accurately and critically.
Yes. Oh,
and as of right now, we're also developing a course for librarians with regards to generative AI and how they can deal with everything that they see up against the users of their libraries.
Yes, because we have found that it is essential to go beyond the classroom and extend our efforts to expanding the professional groups that we do work with and targets. So this video shows an exhibition that we created at the Bergen Public Library. There we developed an interactive exhibition and learning experience where the audience could experience our tools and techniques, and we focused on making it fun and relevant for young people. And librarians, they are an example of a group we find it really relevant to work with, as it was also mentioned earlier here today. And we do find that libraries is an excellent arena for our outreach. And another example is this Digital toolkit that we developed in 2022. where this initiative it emerged from a collaboration with a European research project that identified a clear need, and that was that parents, they do think it's really hard and they struggle to talk to their children about what they are experiencing online, and children really want and need to talk to parents or teachers or guardians about what they are actually receiving. So based on this need, we developed these conversation cards on various topics like gaming and social media. And at our website, you can find them, I think now it's in 6 different languages.
Yeah, we have them in Norwegian, of course, and English. We also have them available digitally in French, Spanish, German, Chinese, and Russian.
Yeah. Okay, so over the last 5 years, we have experienced that the need for working against misinformation and towards information resilience in Norway is far too significant for us in Teng to do to address alone. So to address this, Faktisk, together with press organizations and with support from other institutions in academia and in private sector, we have started to work towards a Center for Information Resilience, and hopefully this center will reach new audiences beyond secondary education, and also provide us with a stronger links between research and digital literacy, misinformation, and we do hope that it can be a training center aimed at the whole civil societies. So in December 2024, we did a proposal and it was sent to the Norwegian government. And it's quite big ambitions, and we are continuing to working on this, and we'll see if it happens, you know, maybe a year from now or so. Yeah. Okay, I think that was our time.
Yeah.
But we'll be here all afternoon, so of course, if you want to have a chat with us, you just come and reach us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was very inspirational. And once again, I mean, there is so many things to discuss over that, but a wonderful way that you have been able to pool different kinds of sources, and your scale is already significant on reaching all the topics and all that. And yes, we are very keen now on, we have been developing now some new ideas on how could we especially cooperate on the AI field, because as a small player, Faktabari needs to focus until we get the other media literacy actors on board or something. One thing that, because you are kind of part of the Fakti story, the kind of together type of things, next to bringing now the media literacy people together and institutions together, are you able to use somehow the journalistic networks of the Faktisk and the founders? So are they kind of spreading your materials or giving you the notice that you certainly deserve or something like that?
Well, yes, we have on several occasions cooperated with different media outlets. You say before the election in 2023, we had local elections. We cooperated with NRK, which is our state, the state-funded network in Norway, where they had some articles, a series of articles coming out. In which we developed some learning resources too, so that students could use and teachers could use those articles and use our framework of questions and supports and materials to actually dig into the matter with the students. So that's just one example of when we had one such kind of cooperation. We also have
we also did the One other example is we did a project together with VG, which is one of the biggest newspapers in Norway, on women's health. That was like the two, and also we do have a great work with a different kind of media organization. We are also located at the same building, so that gives us
access to them.
Wow. And also with the different kind of local media institutions.
They are very positive to working with us. When we reach out, they are always interested in talking with us.
So the together type of story really works, even among the fierce competitors, like they are on the side. I happen to know, because following a long time on the Faktis thing, that the initiator for this new project as well is actually from the journalistic world, not from the education world. So it's just like, once again, they are pushing for the sake of their own interest as well to provide fact-based, material and keep people still somehow with the facts and not just the emotions that we know that are striving the social medias that the people are. Any immediate questions for the ladies, or then we can follow in of course during the drinks and so on, because we still have Bruce here later. But yeah, Susanna, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the inspiring presentation. I'm thinking about this environment where NGOs are defunded in Finland, and looking at your work, it's you are producing also very marvelous resources. Working in the NGOs with minor funding at the moment, it would be possible to then take advantage of localizing such resources, even if one couldn't do that oneself. And you also showed that you have localizable resources, but I was interested also about this in the context of your first TikTok presentation. I wonder if there's anything, if it's very local to Norway, that one.
Well, the TikTok videos are produced in Norwegian, and we don't really have the resources to produce them in English as of now. But we are always open to discussions, and we are, of course, part of the NORDIS project. So even if our videos are in Norwegian, the content and the information probably is quite can be applied to more than just the Norwegian context.
But this is like exactly what we've been reflecting since yesterday, that what could be kind of, copycat. I mean, our guide could be of use to your things. It's a Creative Commons content, and we could pick up some of that one, because we are still all small player and the challenges are huge.
Yes.
But just a kind of disclosure for the NORDIS thing, that is actually more like a one person per institutions during the per participant for 2.5 years, and this covers fact-checking, media literacy, and research. So you cannot just expect that NORDIS is going to do that, everything, but that at least we are kind of trying to find within the framework that is very promising. And unfortunately, I think we don't have time to kind of create completely new institutions anymore. So build on what we have, because this is really urgent work. But thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And now let's get a little bit of a perspective to all of this one. And I think we didn't have time too much to talk. You and Kari have been talking already a lot, but this was really fascinating. And you can demonstrate also that you can make media literacy scale with a framework. So, Bryce, please take the floor, and please present yourself correctly, so I don't need to make any mistakes. Thank you.
Do you want this one or the headset? This is fine. Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you all very much for being here. I feel like I should probably start by saying that I feel very, very fortunate that English is a language that you all speak in common, because otherwise I was going to have to do this presentation in Finnish or Norwegian or Swedish or I don't know what. So I do not take for granted for a second that you all speak English, and that has made my life very easy. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I have come all the way from Australia, the lovely town of Brisbane, for those of you who know anything about Australia, where it's currently 37 degrees. So I'm very happy to be here in the cold. I am very excited also to talk a little bit about Newshounds, which is the media literacy program for primary school children that we have developed in Australia. Now, just by way of background, I've worked as a journalist for 25 years, or probably a little bit longer. I'm also a father of 2, and about 4 years ago, it became obvious to me that my children were not being exposed to traditional media sources in the same way that I had been growing up. So newspapers were always laying around the house. The television news was always on when I was growing up. But my children, that was not the case. Newspapers weren't as commonly seen. If they watched television at all, they were watching YouTube or they were watching streaming. So as a result, they were just becoming less incidentally exposed to news from really reliable sources of information. And so we set up at that time a daily news podcast for children. The idea being that you would create a podcast every day which broke down the big news stories of the day, but in a kid-friendly way. So we would pick stories from what was happening in the world that we knew kids would be interested in, and presented it to them in a fun, engaging format in a podcast. And we threw that out and we thought, well, let's see how that goes. It now has about 160,000 Australian kids and their families listening to it every day, which is phenomenal. And about 5,000 primary school teachers also listen to this podcast every day. As a result of that podcast, I was starting to notice that my children would increasingly come to the dinner table and tell me about facts that they had picked up on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. And I suddenly realized, okay, we need to create a resource that can go into classrooms that helps teachers to teach children to start to think critically about the flood of information that they have coming at them. Because what is true here is true in Australia and all around the world. And that is that children have more information coming at them today than at any other time in history. But I don't believe there's a single education system in the world that has made up for that, or is teaching to that, or is teaching the critical thinking skills that are required to allow children to start filtering information in an efficient manner. And so, with the help of the Google News Initiative, who initially funded us, we created Newshounds. Now, if this video works, it's a high-tech jungle out. There's more information coming about kids than any other time in history, and not all of it is cool. I could probably. This is Squizzy the Newshound, the world's first internet detective dog, trained to sniff out fake news, teaching kids to stop, think, and check before believing everything they see online. Newshounds, a world-first classroom resource teaching primary school kids how to tell online fact from fiction. It's 9 podcasts and videos, comes with a classroom workbook and a comprehensive teacher manual in a virtual online game format, because we knew that we had to make it engaging for kids. And we have created this concept of turning children into net detectives. So Squizzy the Newshound is an internet detective dog. It's a cartoon character, and every lesson he goes out into the internet and he sniffs out mis and disinformation. He's a bloodhound, so steeped in the tradition of Sherlock Holmes, he knows how to find mis and disinformation. So we gamified it because we knew that kids would become more engaged with it if there was some sense that they were playing a game. As they go through every one of the sessions that they do, they collect another piece of internet detective kit. So in the first session, they might get a set of handcuffs to arrest the impacts of misinformation. In another session, they might get a torch to shine a light on disinformation. And by the end of the 9 sessions, they become internet detectives and they become qualified news hounds. We launched the program, and it was built, I should say, speaking exactly to the point that was made by the 2 presenters just before me, we brought primary school teachers in to help us build this, because we knew that there's no point building something that isn't going to work in a classroom context. So the primary school teachers came in and we came up with a pedagogy, and we came up with a clever way of working out how we can get kids to start thinking critically. Squizzy the News Hound has a 3-word mantra: stop, think, and check. And the entire basis, I guess, for the whole News Hounds program, and the entire reason we've made it for primary school children, so we're talking about children aged 8 to 12 primarily, is we've based it on the idea that if you don't get to kids and give them these very basic ideas around thinking critically and not believing everything you see online, if you don't get this messaging to them before they have a smartphone in their hands, then potentially you've lost them. So you want to try and, in the same way that we don't send kids to the beach in Australia without making sure they know how to swim, we don't let kids cross the road in Australia until they've learnt the basics of road safety. Why on earth are we letting kids out onto the internet without first teaching them the very basics of how to think critically about the information that they're coming across? So, as I've said, it's a podcast-led program. It's absolutely free, so that's also was an important part for us because we needed to make it accessible to as many people as possible. It runs as a podcast but plays as a video. It's all accessible via an internet, so all you need is an internet connection. Teachers tend to play it on interactive whiteboards or on television screens in their classroom. They download the classroom workbooks so that the kids have a workbook and they do the exercises with every podcast session. The teacher manual is set out in such a way and written by primary school teachers so that the teachers don't have to be experts in media literacy or the teaching thereof in order to teach every one of the sessions. So the teacher manual has teacher tips. In this session, we're going to be talking about what is media. We're going to be talking about who makes media. We're going to talk about why people make media and what sorts of influences they might be, or what sorts of reasons they might be making media for. So it's all been built, as I said, as a combination of myself as a journalist and primary school teachers. We launched it just over a year ago, and we had hoped we might get maybe 500 classrooms signing up to do it. Before I flew over here, we had actually just under 3,500 classrooms around the country who had started to become news hounds. We think that's around about 50,000 Australian children who are now starting to learn how to stop, think, and check when they're online. It was also important to us to make sure that that it was underpinned by strong academic underpinnings. And so we got the Queensland University of Technology to have a look at the program and to assess it. And so they did focus groups with kids who had done news hounds, teachers who had taught it, and parents of children who had been exposed to the News Hounds program. And one of the things we found, which we had never expected, but we were very happy to discover, is that children were doing News Hounds in the classroom, and then they were going back home, and at night around the dinner table, they were talking to their parents, and their parents would say, "Oh, I saw this on Facebook today." And the children were challenging them and saying to them, "Well, is that right? Because Squizzy the News Hound tells us to stop, think, and check." And so what you had, which we had never expected, but we were super happy to discover, was that children were taking the lessons they had learned at school and passing them on to parents. It's our hope that with the success of Newshounds for primary school kids, the next step will be to create a similar version of Newshounds but for adults. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that seniors are especially vulnerable to mis and disinformation, to online fraud, online scams. We would love to use the same sort of template and the same sort of educational template that we've created with Newshounds to create a similar resource for older generations as well. We are in the process of having a discussion with government because now we've created this resource and now we have this enormous potential for it to succeed and to be expanded and to be scaled. We need some money. We've been funded up until this point very generously by the Google News Initiative, and we're very grateful for that. It's not a long-term solution. So we're having discussions at the moment with the Australian government about funding the rollout of Newshounds into primary schools all across the country. So we have an election coming up in Australia probably in the next 3 or 4 months, which we are hoping will work well for us because it's the sort of election pledge that plays very well to families. The subject of mis and disinformation, the concern that parents, that teachers have around the idea that their children are being exposed to all of this information and yet don't have the ability to tell online fact from fiction is very real in Australia, and we're hoping we're able to leverage that. To that end, a lot of my work in the last 12 months has been shamelessly dragging federal politicians in Australia into classrooms. And this is, none of these faces will mean anything to any of you, but the guy up in the top left is the federal treasurer. He's the one that has the money. We've had him in a classroom in his electorate because until you actually stand in a classroom and you see children doing Newshounds and you see the level of sophistication with which they speak about media literacy, with which they speak about the media they're consuming on a almost full-time basis on YouTube and TikTok, until you've actually stood in a classroom and seen that, do you actually comprehend the scale of the problem and the genius of the solution, I think, that we've come up with. There's been a lot of activity in Australia, as you'd be well aware, around social media. The Australian government passed legislation in November which will see anyone under the age of 16 banned from social media platforms in Australia. Now, that legislation doesn't come into effect until next September. There is a federal election between now and then. I don't believe there's any reason that that legislation will change. Both parties have indicated their support for the banning of social media platforms for anyone under the age of 16. The devil, of course, will be in the detail. And certainly the commentary is all around, well, that's great, and is a useful starting point in terms of helping parents, helping teachers, to start to get children off of these social media platforms, but how are you going to enforce it? To my knowledge, and certainly to the knowledge of everyone I've spoken to, there isn't a jurisdiction in the world that has yet worked out how to effectively ban children, or anyone that matter, from social media platforms. There's a lot of talk around age verification technologies, about whether or not they are effective. I don't know personally. I do know that my 14-year-old daughter, when we explained to her what was happening next year, she just laughed and said that TikTok thinks she's 27 anyway, so she doesn't actually think it's going to make much difference. But there is a lot of activity, as you'd be aware, in Australia, and certainly before I came here, I was in the United States, and was watching, as I'm sure you all were, very closely as TikTok was, or the ban on TikTok was upheld by the US Supreme Court, but then TikTok was given a reprieve by the new US president. So obviously a lot of questions are still hanging in the air as to what is going to be going on there. Yes, ending on an uplifting note, I hope, to preserve democracies, we're going to have to spend a lot more time figuring out how we're educating our kids to sort out the difference between fact, opinion, falsehood, and what looks real, but what isn't. And I guess this is the other thing that I say to anybody that will listen, and certainly whenever I meet with any of the government officials in Australia, this is not a nice to have. This is, we're talking about preserving the democratic institution. And I know that sounds completely overblown, and sometimes I catch myself as a journalist thinking that's a ridiculous thing to say, but it's not. I think we are facing with social media, the advent thereof, these tech companies, and we're watching this play out in real time in the United States, even as we speak. This is nothing less than existential for democracy. And it's a civic duty, I think, and this is why we've focused on the government, and we've said to them it is absolutely the civic duty of any government to make sure that it has an informed citizenry, and one that is able to tell online fact from fiction. So there you have it. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, and this is really inspiring and a success case, and we certainly hope all the best for the efforts to gain like a sustainable funding, because I mean, I think that needs to be questioned when we be very critical to the platforms. I think the fundamental things, I don't have any problems of the platforms giving their fair share to kind of compensate the harms that partially they have contributed, some more than others, but the sustainably it has to be on the other track. And we even in some of the colleagues that might be online in 2018 addressed that there should be a way for pooling the resources from the platforms and then distributing it independently without even causing this type of claims that, oh, actually, did you see one of the big tech companies there? Even if it wouldn't make the difference, and I don't doubt about the approach. Yeah. So that type of sustainable things would still be needed. At the same time, I was very happy to know that the stop, think, check, that is very commonly used in NORDIS. And I think this was very refreshing as well to get now the attention to the very young ones. We are more working with the teens and almost adult people at the moment, but I think you have both programs for that one. In Faktabari, we are starting a project in summertime, an EU consortium that focuses especially on the young ones, and we are very happy to. I believe I can talk on behalf of the colleagues who will be involved, but happy to check out these type of things.
Yeah, and I should actually add, we're looking for international partners to spread Newshounds into other countries. So if we're speaking at the moment with an organisation in India who are going to be taking Newshounds, and it requires a small amount of translation, obviously, and to the point of one of the audience before, some of the examples we use could easily be localised to make the material suitable to different audiences, but it's a project that we would love to work with any of you on. So please get in contact with me there, or have a chat to me afterwards. Because yeah, we're keen to spread it as far and wide as possible. Thank you very much. Actually, I kind of lost my clock, as you can imagine already. So, Esa, tell me, I mean, are we already on overtime? Okay, so we have a couple of time for a couple of questions before then we will wrap it up for the session. So, any questions to Price? And perhaps in waiting, you have been now traveling in Europe and all that, so contextually. Yes. Because we here want to believe that we are protected more, so to say, at least by the legislation to be implemented, even with the guidance of a Finnish commissioner that will have to battle there with the big tech pros at the moment. So. But how is the context in Australia? We have heard occasionally news that there's been a big battles as such, but from the citizens' point of view, how do you see it? Yeah, I think comparatively, I think we're probably 5 years behind Europe and the United States. I've just spent 2 weeks in the US. I probably should have explained. I was awarded a Churchill Fellowship, which is allowing me to travel around the world and meet with media literacy experts all over the world. I'd say probably in Australia we're around about 5 years behind where you're at in Europe. We've had a very interesting couple of years with respect to the big tech companies. We managed to create what was called a media bargaining code, whereby the tech companies were obliged to pay newspapers, television stations. There was a fee that they were obliged to pay for a period of 3 years. That expired, and media companies are now in the process of scrambling again to have that renewed because they became so dependent on that money. The legislation obviously that has been introduced recently to introduce a social media ban for under 16s, I think, you know, that places us somewhat at the vanguard of dealing with the problem, although I'm not sure there's a huge amount of confidence that it's going to actually keep children off social media. And of course the concern very much is that whilst they may not go onto TikTok, they're kids. They're digital natives. They'll find somewhere else to gather. They'll find other platforms, and the platforms that they gather on may not be platforms that we've ever heard of or can in any way regulate. So that in and of itself creates some problems.
And Esa and meanwhile, just on the AI part where we started, is the AI a hot topic, so to say?
Increasingly.
Is there something like you heard what Kari and the guys were telling you? So
absolutely, and amongst the educational profession, it's interesting that initially, and again, I have 2 children in high school, and initially you could see it was teachers pushing back against AI and being very much against its use. But I think there is more of a movement towards, all right, let's embrace AI and embrace what it's able to do for learning, but integrate it and just be a little more careful around how we allow students to use it, and the critical thinking again. I mean, and it all comes back to this idea of teaching children to think critically about materials that they are receiving whilst they're online. So.
Yep. Thank you very much. So we have a question here. Okay, please.
Thank you. I was wondering, since your character in Squiz Kids is again very much like an elementary school directed, but I'm here with a colleague and we're upper secondary teachers. So would you think you could develop the same thing really with this kind of same, I don't know, family of characters or something? Because that's fantastic, the whole character thing there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as I said before, we've created it in such a way. It's a very modular piece of online learning. We can easily adapt the different parts of every one of those sessions and every one of those pieces of online learning can be changed. We could certainly create one for high school students. I think you would, I mean, this obviously is pitched at children of that age. You would obviously need to change the tone. And so much, and we've learned this from the daily news podcast we produce, so much of the success of these sorts of resources is about tone. And it's about speaking to children in a way that they will respond to. It's not about speaking down to them. It's especially not about being didactic and lecturing to them. It's trying to keep the tone as conversational as possible, as self-conscious as possible, and humour is incredibly important. Using humour is a really, really great way of helping to teach kids these lessons. Because if they're having fun, they're not also necessarily aware that they're learning something along the way.
Wonderful. Any other questions online or? Yes, please, Marianne.
Thank you. Marianne Pasi from Faktabari board. I have a question on your funding from Google about your experiences and how much money, but also. But
not sure if that's commercial in confidence. I don't think it is. But no.
But also, does Google use your results for their own business model or something like that? So what is their interest?
Yeah, so I mean, happily, and this is completely honest. It's not like I have a Google boot on my neck. They have been very generous in terms of the money that they've given to us, and very hands-off in terms of they've had absolutely no input whatsoever into the formulation of the program, into the lessons that are included in the program. They don't have any editorial oversight. From Google's point of view, let's be honest, it makes them look good. It makes them. It's a way for them. When the government says to them, as it does regularly, what are you doing about mis and disinformation? What are you doing about helping to teach the next generation? They go, well, we fund this initiative, and it's in almost 4,000 schools, and it's been a huge success. So we've been. I mean, we massively appreciate. We wouldn't have gotten to where we are without that funding. And they have indicated a willingness to make sure that we continue to have that funding until such time as hopefully the government comes to the table. And again, you know, we wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be standing here if that wasn't the case.
I think that's a pure pragmatism. In some countries, you don't have any other sources.
Absolutely,
and this works very much.
And I should add, we've made similar approaches to Meta. We've tried to engage TikTok, and they don't want to know about it. So, yeah.
And Australia has been a kind of a hard on the platform, so I mean, I've seen the games in 10 years, so of course you try to please the ones. So fair enough, a PR, but then good that it brings results like that. Then the question is like what Minna was addressing, that to what extent we can really apply that on scale, also in their platforms. And but as far as I understand, these are independent, do whatever you want for a while project. We can file that you've been giving amount of money and saying that at least somebody's doing, but this is not the sustainable way.
No, absolutely. It's not. It's enough for us to create what we've called a pilot and to have proof of concept. We now need to find a way to make this a sustainable model.
So the same challenge as well. Thank you very much, Bryce. Great. And wow. I will quickly try to, I don't want to even try to summarize. I have to check the recording that will be available apparently almost immediately, because it's, So you can repeat things. I will repeat things, and we will take our share. Hopefully you were able to get your share as well on some of the best practices. The NORDIS will keep on going with many activities on other fields. We are going for a common campaigning. We have been indicatively thinking that a kind of internal deadline to get all the guides, for example, out would be the 13th of March. That's the, so to say, source literacy day. And at least Faktabar is having one event in Ordi library. We know that the TENK is going to have something. Is it in Oslo? Very good. And then we know our Swedish colleagues from Källkritiksbyrån who have been running Källkritikens dag for a long time are certainly going to have something, and we are talking with our Danish things. So that could be the next opportunity for outreach, because the source literacy, the deeper and deeper we go, I think that's the kind of a sourcing, based on what type of questions. These really questions that also stem from fact-checking, these are a very sustainable approach to see also the AI world and the social media world, the two big challenges that we all try to address at the moment. But so to say, 13th of March, we are doing these actually projects in cooperation with the European Parliament Helsinki office and NORDIS Central Library in here for the Finnish audiences. You can follow on our website, and then for the others, we will make sure that there will be a kind of a follow-up on the NORDIS website, at least a link to something. And that's something easy to remember, that if you were able to join our session and you see the agenda, we will at least make a link to the same agenda later on to all the, let's say, follow-up stuff, and so you will be able to find them and find, of course, first of all, the invaluable new resource of the AI literacy guide as promised. Outside that, I think it leaves me to conclude this one on behalf of the Faktabaari and the NORDIS. And once again, thank you very much for DECA, who has been supporting both our guide and our event, and the following democracy drinks that we will have just next doors. I think Markus and Elsa have been there, or they are probably working on it, and we can follow on informal note. And yep, we will continue with this one. I thank you very much for our online listeners, and I see still that Kari has something. Oh, okay. Yeah. No. Okay, I make this really horrible for our online guests, because I mean, our Faktabaari team actually has been preparing handmade, very human touch, Karelian pies yesterday before we had a kind of a thank you dinner for our writers and to greet our esteemed guests. And so there is some of that Karelian pies there, and then there are some drinks, and hopefully soon light as well. So thank you very much, everybody, and greetings.